Hello everybody and welcome back to Grandview Entertainment. My name is Ryan, and in today's video I will be giving you my ranking of all the Spider-Man movies. I'll start off by saying I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I do love this character so much. And all these movies have moments that I do really love. I don't love all the movies, to be clear, but they all have moments that I look back and I enjoy. But unfortunately, there are some movies you'll see at the bottom of the list that I do have flaws with. But I wanted to put that up front that I am a huge Spider-Man fan, and I do not think there is a outright awful Spider-Man movie. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. One final thing before delving into the video, I will not be covering the Sony Spider-Man villain movies. For me personally, I'm not really a fan of any of those movies. Some of them have some entertainment that I enjoy, but for the most part, I do not think any of those are really good movies at all. And personally, all of them would be below my number 11 on the list, so I did not feel like it was really necessary to add them to the list. At number 11, I have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. When I first saw this movie as a kid, I did not like this movie, and now, after multiple years of being able to rewatch the movie, I now feel more mixed on the movie. There are definitely a lot of things that really work in this movie for me. The web swinging is beautiful. Andrew Garfield is my favorite Spider-Man, and he is just as great as he was in the first movie, if not better at times. Emma Stone is great as Gwen Stacy as well, as they continue their amazing chemistry. And this is a beautiful looking movie. Seeing Spider-Man swinging in this movie, really outside of Brand New Day, has never been as good as it is in this movie. So there are a lot of great moments in this movie, and there are a lot of really confusingly bad decisions. And unfortunately, that's very unfortunate because, in my opinion, this movie does have some of the highest highs in any comic book movie, as some of them I listed just a minute ago. But while that, you get a mix of some of the most frustrating and just some of the lowest lows in any comic book movie. Electro, Green Goblin, and the Rhino are all underwhelming, to say the least, in this movie. And overall, the story is just very jammed-packed with a lot going on, and is just a very messy movie. Now, obviously, there were a lot of behind-the-scenes problems that have been noted multiple times, that they were trying to set up a Sinister Six movie. They were trying to, make their own Spider-Man universe, and that's very much prevalent throughout the movie. But as I said, there are multiple bad things, where the Electro stuff is very messy, and the Rhino stuff is really weird, and obviously Harry Osborn is very much rushed as the Green Goblin. But then you will have beautiful scenes of Spider-Man swinging through the city, and then the death of Gwen Stacy, which maybe is one of the best scenes in all of comic book movie history. So I truly mean that I do think this is a good movie. It has a lot of good elements in the movie, but there also are a lot of bad elements that kind of really make me very mixed on the movie, unfortunately. Which is very disappointing because, as I stated before, Andrew Garfield is my favorite Spider-Man. At number 10, I have Spider-Man Far From Home. Personally, for me, I do think this movie is a step down from Spider-Man Homecoming. And there are a lot of really good, moments in this movie. But there's also a lot of things for me that really are confusing. The whole Edith glasses thing, when you really think about it for too long, is very, confusing. And it really seems like it wasn't thought through fully all the way. That obviously the glasses, Tony Stark left the Edith glasses to a high schooler who had been dead for 5 years with no directions or instructions on how to use them. And then the biggest problem I also have with this movie, while I do like Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, I do not like that we once again in a Spider-Man movie make the villain have a grudge against Tony Stark. It worked fine enough in Homecoming, and I understood it then. It doesn't really need to be in this movie, and I was very frustrated that they did decide to include that again. There are a lot of flaws, unfortunately, with this movie, and I don't know, it's very weird to see Spider-Man in Europe. I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing, but I feel like it just feels like more of a side quest, and that's how I would describe this movie. Obviously, it released after Endgame, so they were trying to go with a story that wasn't as big and as grand and something more small scale. So we get a Spider-Man movie where he goes to Europe with his classmates. By all means, it's not a terrible movie, but it is a very, very flawed movie that I felt like definitely could have been fixed more. At number 9, I have Spider-Man 3. And this movie did jump a little bit up on the list after my most recent rewatch, as the themes of forgiveness and vengeance being a poison, I think, really go well with the characters of Sandman and Venom in this movie. Tobey Maguire, obviously, it's great to see him back as Spider-Man for the third time. It's great to see a different version of, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man where things are going better for him. But at the same time, this was the first sign of kind of being a movie being really overstuffed, where they obviously had, Harry as a villain, they had Sandman, they had Venom. And while Sandman, I do think, is a great villain, and though I don't love the Uncle Ben stuff that they have tied to him, I do think he is a great villain. But unfortunately, Harry, they kind of take him out early in the movie and sideline him and making him kind of being forgetful of the whole last movie, which I didn't really like. And then Venom, obviously, if you've read anything about this movie, Sam Raimi did not want to include Venom, and it does feel like that he is very tacked on at the end. So definitely a messy movie, but there are still a lot of great themes and great elements in this movie. At number 8, I have Spider-Man Homecoming. And for me, this is a big jump up from the previous 3 movies. I know there's a lot of things you can nitpick about this movie, whether it's the suit Karen that, talks to him, and the very much overwhelmingly a lot of Iron Man, centric things with the suits and being over technologized and stuff like that. But for me, I love this movie, and I have a lot of fun rewatching this movie. It's very nice to just have a small-scale Spider-Man movie where he's truly in this movie your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I think he truly, of all the Spider-Man movies, this is the one where he lives up to that title the best, as being a small-scale Spider-Man movie set in Queens. We get the Vulture, who is a more small-scale Spider-Man villain, played amazingly by Michael Keaton. And, there definitely are some flaws, and this is where we started to see the Iron Man Jr. and the over-technicalized parts of Spider-Man for the MCU that a lot of people don't like, and that I'm not a huge fan of myself. But I do think this is just an easy movie to watch. Obviously, you can very much tell it's inspired by, John Hughes movies of the 80s, and I think that's a very cool idea, actually, of a John Hughes-style Spider-Man movie. By all means, like I said, you can nitpick this movie. There are flaws with this movie. But for me, I think this is just a fun, small-scale Spider-Man movie. At number 7, I have Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, there are definitely a lot of problems that people have come up for this movie, whether the CGI not looking the best, obviously, as this film was shot during COVID, and the first half of this movie not being as strong as the second half. And while I could definitely agree with those first two, I don't hate the first half as much as others, even though I do admit it's definitely the weaker half of the movie. But personally for me, the second half of this film is so strong and gives everything a Spider-Man fan could possibly imagine. It gives us our 3 live-action Spider-Man all together on the big screen, giving us all the dialogue and all the moments you could want from that, along with giving us a brighter future for Tom Holland's version of the Spider-Man. Obviously now, after Aunt May dies and everyone has forgotten about him, he is truly on his own, which sets up a brand new day, but this movie does so much right in the second half, besides just giving us, a lot of good fan service, which it does. I believed it made a lot of people like myself more anticipated for the future of Tom Holland's character, and that's why I have it at number 7 on the list. At number 6, I have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This movie is truly another great Spider-Man sequel, and I think the one thing I will say it tops with Into the Spider-Verse, and Into the Spider-Verse was groundbreaking animation, and it still is. I think somehow this movie tops that, and I think that was, watching this in the theaters, I still am blown away that they somehow topped the previous movie. Now, with that being said, there are other elements, like I think Miguel O'Hara is a better villain or antagonist, than Wilson Fisk. I think he's actually really great in this movie, and Oscar Isaac did a great job with the role. And this movie is a great follow-up. I don't have any major problems. The only, I guess, would be defined as a major problem is that this is a part 1 or 2. So for me to fully judge the movie, it leaves off on a cliffhanger and leaves us for Beyond the Spider-Verse, which I'm very excited for. But it's not, unfortunately, it's not a complete story. So we'll have to see when Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out. They may make this movie jump up higher on the list, stay where it is, I don't know. So when Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, I do expect to move this movie somewhere on the list. But for right now, I do love this movie. It does a lot of great things, but for me, it's not a complete story. So that's why I have it at number 6. At number 5, I have Spider-Man 2. Now, I know a lot of people are not going to like this ranking on the list because a lot of people think this should be number 1, or also they believe that this is the best superhero sequel. And while let me state the obvious, I think this is a great sequel, and I do love this movie. Now, I do think it is a little bit not as good as the first, by a little bit, and there's 2 problems I have. One minor and one semi-major. But not, let me be clear, like I said, this is still a great movie. But delving into the problems, Peter quitting being Spider-Man, that part is fine. I get why, it's obviously stress and it's putting a lot on his life and it's preventing him from really living his life how he wants to. That part I get. But there are a lot of goofy moments with this. And I know there's a lot of goofy elements in all of these movies, but especially the raindrops keep falling on my head scene right after the scene of, where he puts the suit in the garbage can, which is right out of the comics, that obviously iconic visual. I think it's very goofy, and while I like the scene, I think it's funny, I do think it's it's kind of goofy, and I kind of always figure, oh yeah, he kind of loses his powers for like a goofy moment. So that part, it's obviously not a major problem by any means, and I still like the scene. But for me, I do acknowledge that was a little goofy for me. But then getting into my major issue, I would say I have, but even then, it didn't prevent me from still loving this movie, but Mary Jane. I like her in the first movie, and I think she's fine in the third movie, but there are points in this movie where I find her insufferable. And because of that, I have a hard time really seeing things from her point of view. So whenever, there's arguments or wherever disagreements, instead of seeing both characters' sides, I always just agree with Toby and I agree with Spider-Man. Obviously it's, because she's just kind of, like I said, insufferable at times. And I think making her insufferable is, like I said, it's kind of hard to see her point of view, and I think that's a huge flaw in the movie. But to be clear, like I said multiple times, because people are going to be like, how do you not like Spider-Man? How's it number 5? Love Spider-Man 2. It's a great movie, but those major minor flaws, hold it back from being the best sequel of all time. Like I said, I think it's a great sequel. I think it's one of the best sequels, but I just don't think it's the greatest sequel of all time. I will say, though, the action scene on the train sequence, the train scene, is still the best Spider-Man action scene. So I do want to shout that out. But at number 5, I have Spider-Man 2. At number 4, I have the newest movie on this list, Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, I had to make sure, I wanted to rewatch it for a second time to figure out where I was going to put it on this list. Because I knew, unfortunately, it was not the top of the list, but I didn't know that this was a great Spider-Man movie. So for now, I have it at number 4, and that's because this is the Tom Holland Spider-Man movie I have been waiting for. Obviously, he's fully locked in on being Spider-Man. He's put all his time and energy on being Spider-Man. Unfortunately, at the cost of, not being able to interact with MJ or Ned, obviously, as they don't remember him. And I just think this movie captured the essence of Spider-Man so well. And this movie just does a great job of making people who love Tom Holland's Spider-Man love him more. And people who I think aren't as big a fan of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I think this will be the movie to win them over. Now, I don't love the villains, with being the Department of Damage Control and Jean Grey, and I wish they would have done more of an authentic Spider-Man villain. That does bother me, but on rewatch, I do think the story they have for her in the Department of Damage Control is a good story. So, even though it's maybe not the villain I would have wanted, and maybe I would have wanted a more traditional Spider-Man movie, that's kind of more what I would have wanted. But what they gave me was still a great story and a great Spider-Man movie. At number 3, I have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I absolutely love this movie and adore it. Every time I watch it, I enjoy this movie more, as this truly feels like a love letter to the character of Spider-Man. The animation is truly groundbreaking, and this movie really made me personally fall in love with the character of Miles Morales. I love this character now. I never was not a fan, but I was always kind of like, he's all right. But this movie does a great job of making you really care for this character, and this movie just truly feels like a love letter to Spider-Man, and I feel like everything amazing about this movie has probably already been said, but I really love this movie, and I really enjoy so many elements of this movie. It's paced also incredibly well. Like, this movie is under 2 hours and flies by very quickly, but at the same time, it does not feel rushed at all. I can't say enough great things about this movie. At number 2, and this I think is going to be my hottest take of this video, maybe not, we'll see, The Amazing Spider-Man. I will fully say I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie, and maybe that blinds me of some of the negatives of this movie. This was the first Spider-Man movie I ever saw in theaters. It's probably the Spider-Man movie I've watched the most. Maybe my number 1, or, Spider-Man 2. Maybe I've watched those more, but honestly, I've watched this movie a lot of times, and I love it. I truly think it's amazing. Andrew Garfield is so good in this movie as Spider-Man. Emma Stone is the best love interest in any Spider-Man movie, maybe even any comic book movie. She is great as Gwen Stacy. While the Lizard is not perfect, I do think Rhys Ifans does do a pretty good job as the Lizard. As the man who lost his arm, trying to grow it back. Like I said, does go a little over the top, unfortunately, with his character near the end, but I still think he's a great villain. I do like also Dennis Leary as Captain Stacy in this movie. Martin Sheen and Sally Field as Aunt May and Uncle Ben are different than the ones we got previously, and are also, I think, in my opinion, pretty good. The parent stuff is a part of this movie I don't really mind in this movie particularly, but The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is kind of where I have more issues with that one. But I think there's so many amazing things in this movie, and that I understood it could be nostalgia, it could be a lot of different things that make me love this movie maybe more than others, but I don't know, I really like this movie a lot, and this really solidified for me my love of Spider-Man when I was a kid, so this movie means a lot to me, and that's why it's number 2 on this list. At number 1, I have Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Now, this is the movie that started off the entire Spider-Man franchise and superhero franchises as well. This was the starting point for all of that, and this movie still stands the test of time for me. Now, obviously, I noticed some people do like to nitpick, and I think you can nitpick, honestly, with all of these movies about the Green Goblin suit and, this and that, but for me, this movie is paced incredibly well. At 2 hours and a minute, it flies by very well. Willem Dafoe is probably still the best superhero villain in a comic book movie. I mean, maybe Heath Ledger's the Joker, but he is up there without a doubt. For me, he's my personal favorite, but I think a lot of people would agree he's up there. And this movie is just the basic Spider-Man origin story. They nailed it to a T. The great power comes great responsibility. They did the suit perfectly done. I mean, this movie, for me, it just got all the basic elements of Spider-Man right. It got the origin story right. It got the villain right. Tobey Maguire is great as Spider-Man. And I don't really have any main big negatives with this movie. Yes, there are certain things you can nitpick, like I said, with any of these movies, including this one. But for me, this movie just gets the character of Spider-Man right the most. And that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you for checking out this video and checking out my channel, Grandview Entertainment. As always, if you could please like and subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of exciting content on the way. More movie reviews, more movie talks, and movie ideas that I would like to share with you guys. So as always, like I said, please like and subscribe. And thank you for checking out my channel, and I will see you in the next video.